Hello, footies. Welcome along to your latest dose of FIFA Ultimate Team goodness. We are Foot in Review, powered by footcoaching.com, your number one independent EAFC24 podcast, broadcasting twice a week and now in video version as well. So please check us out on YouTube if you want to see our lovely faces. And if you want to hear our voice, you can choose to access us wherever you download your podcasts. And of course, we are on things like Amazon Music as well. So you can ask your smart device just to play Foot in Review and you will hear our dulcet tones. Thank you very much to everyone for supporting the show. But if you want to go that extra mile, why not consider signing up for our Patreon at patreon.com/Foot in Review. You get a range of fantastic benefits, including access to our brand new merch scheme. Free merch, everybody. It's our loyalty program, giving back to all of you who give to us. So very much encourage you to go and check that out. Patreon.com/Foot in Review. And on that note as well, a big thank you to our Skybox holders. They go above and beyond at the very highest level of support. So a massive thank you to all of our Skybox holders. That includes Paul, Amma, Artyom, Mario, Peter, and Simon. In the meantime, let's get on with today's show. Hello, footies. Welcome back for what is our final look at FIFA 23. My name is Dan Wimbush, otherwise known as Wimby. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Here to say a fond farewell to the FIFA franchise with me, a man who's been on the journey with me since I came back. It is the scout. It is Nathan Downs. Nathan, hello again.
Hey Dan, thank you for having me back on. Slightly emotional, It's been a long year, ups and downs. It's been interesting. It's been emotional. It's been a roller coaster, and I'm honoured and privileged to be on sort of closing not just our FIFA 23s, but probably the Foot and Review, foot coaching style FIFA 23 journey, and look forward as obviously to the new game coming out.
Yeah, EAFC 24, just around the corner. It is launch week, of course. Now, we'll pull the curtain back. This is a back-to-back recording for us. We've just spoken at length about the latest pitch notes for EAFC. So very much encourage you to go and check that one out. However, this is just going to be FIFA 23 focused. We are just going to say goodbye to the game. And I think, Nath, only one place to really start is overall, when you look back, did you have fun?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's been a good game. We're going to touch it. We'll break it down slightly into the promos and the gameplays and stuff. But overall, I think it has been good. That EA have been my major issue in terms of lots of the mistakes from them. But actual game wise, I think it's been probably the best one that I can remember. I've only been playing Ultimate Team for 2 or 3 years, but even in general, I think it's been really good fun. How about you, Dan? I know you had a wee hiatus kind of a few weeks ago, but how have you found that?
Yeah, I think that hiatus was almost driven by, I think, what you've just said. I think for me, it was actually probably one of the best FIFAs. I'm going to say, I think it was my most enjoyable FIFA I played. I came back in FIFA 20, and I think that the things you could do, the way they structured promos and kept evolving things throughout the year, the gameplay, just the way it was, I really enjoyed it. And I just enjoyed it too much. I played, I committed too many hours to it. I got too deep into the weeds and I burnt myself out a bit. Having had that break, couple of months off, came back to it, dabbled in a bit of footies content. Really looking forward to EAFC 24 now. But I'm going to be sad to say goodbye to this game, Nath, because I think overall, over the course of the year, I think there's a couple of promos that we're going to come on to which didn't hit the mark. And like you said, EA themselves have somewhat soured the experience at certain points. But overall, when I look back for the £80 that I spent buying the Ultimate Edition, or I can't remember what it was, £80, £90, whatever, thoroughly got my money's worth. I think my total game time came to something like 40 to 45 days, plus God knows how many hours on the companion and web app as well. So very much, fulfilled my entertainment needs in a large part, especially my gaming needs for a long period of time. So yeah, it's a big thumbs up for me. We'll come to our ratings at the very end of the show. Out of 10, we're going to give this game a score. But let's go through some of the promos then, because that's kind of a big thing that people look at. We had some returning favourites. We had, or not favourites, should I say. Things like Ones to Watch made a return. We had Road to the Knockouts. We had Road to the Final. We had Team of the Season, Foot Birthday, Footies, lots of things we'd seen before. We had some new things like the Centurions promo, for example. We saw other returning favourites like Shapeshifters. Out of all of it, take us through, some of the highs and low points from your point of view.
Yeah, it was quite fascinating going back because I'm sure when we probably went through promo by promo as it was coming out, we were saying this one's probably not as good or whatever. But when you go back, there's always been a couple of cards in each promo where you're like, that would have been phenomenal to have, especially at that time. But I'm going to be controversial. You asked me before this to pick my favourite promo. So obviously, initially your mind goes to the footies where you get the 99 rated everything that can do, they can probably score while hanging off the roof of the stadium, doing a backflip and then come down and score. But I think that's a bit too, everyone wants to play with these cards. But I'm a sucker for live content. The World Cup obviously was a special time, being a very strange thing. I really enjoyed Path to Glory. I was lucky because I was in a good coin. I never really got many good pulls from the packs, but I was able to experiment and use lots of players. So you're talking like the Alejandro Gomez card and the Antoine Griezmann card was unreal. So I actually think the Path to Glory World Cup was probably my favourite promo. Slightly different, but it was relating to the games that you're watching all day every day. So I think that was a highlight. I know people have different ideas as well. Even the cover star icons, if that was a month earlier, I think that could have been tremendous because, that Roberto Carlos, when it was released, was unreal. The Wayne Rooney, you came back and used it as your centre mid. Obviously we have the Zinedine Zidane, which stat-wise was like incredible, but again, he played a bit like Zidane does in FIFA and slightly underwhelmed. But that Thierry Henry, like probably the best, well, it is the best version of Henry we've ever had, which we've been calling for forever. So if that was a month early, I think the cover star icons would have been like incredible. How about you, Dan? What's your sort of your highlight, your sort of favorite campaign?
Yeah, I mean, look, coming back in those final weeks, those cover star icons were fantastic. I thought footies. I know there was a lot of people unhappy that some of the cards went into packs and they weren't just all SBCs at an earlier point, but I think there was enough of a balance. They made them accessible enough in the end. Obviously, just in these last couple of weeks, you've been able to get Mbappe, Ronaldo, and Messi if you really want them for these, the last few days of the game. But I like some of the return favourites. I think Winter Wildcards is always really good around Christmas. The World Cup was hit and miss. I agree with you. I think the live content that we had, not just in the World Cup, but road to the finals, road to the knockouts, was all great. And I love that. I mean, me and you, we like the market and the investment opportunities in those players is fantastic. Do feel unfortunate for those people that there were some big swings. I remember Bruno Guimaraes is the big one with Brazil's shock exit to Croatia, wasn't it? Going from, I think he was at like a million coins at one point in that game and then plummeted all the way down to something like a quarter of that. So the swings were immense. The early promos I thought were very lackluster. We had rule breakers, which is I was always been just a pale imitation of Ultimate Scream. Out of position, I kind of got it, but again, it just didn't really have that longevity. The card design was also really random for that out of position one. And then, we were pretty much into the World Cup. And the thing with the World Cup promo was that so much of it was turgid and just, we had those, the World Cup stories, World Cup phenoms, road to the World Cup cards. They were all just interchangeable, slightly different colours. The boosts weren't there. But EA were over they're over a barrel, weren't they, Nath? Because they couldn't go too crazy at that early stage with the November tournament. They couldn't give ridiculous boosts to those players early. So I understand why they were hamstrung, but there just wasn't enough dynamic content. I don't understand why we didn't get special man of the match cards and things like that. Celebrating someone like Bono for having a great penalty shootout, or, people talking about why did we not have like a special moments Saudi Arabia card for beating Argentina. They just didn't really seem to cash in on the license. It was just kind of content that was there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. I think the power curve did the big thing, but even I just loaded up sort of Footbin now, and you're looking at some of those live cards, and I think that's where they put all their eggs. Like you say, the actual sort of day-to-day content was poor, but Bernardo Silva, even in December, 92 rated Bernardo Silva was incredible. The Nkunku was quality. Gomez, Koulibaly, I mean, he was in teams until pretty much team of the season. The Vinny's just always Vinny. So, yeah, I totally see what you said. And World Cup in general was a letdown, and they could have done so much more. But the actual Path to Glory part of the promo, I just thought was, in terms of, when I think of a good promo, you think about longevity, and I think you probably couldn't get much better than that, apart from Team of the Year, which we all know is just incredibly hard to pack anyway.
Yeah, and I think just what also disappointed me over the year was the big marquee promos that have come back year after year. Things like Foot Birthday just seemed so meh. Future Stars, meh. Just nothing got me excited. I mean, I've just gone back and looked at some of the best Foot Birthday cards, and you had N'Golo Conte, who was an SBC. You had Bernardo Silva. You had a Vinny Jr. that was so expensive he was out of range for everyone. Then you had Thomas Muller, Marquinhos, Pedri, Bruno, Zinchenko. Just didn't really do it. I think that they did a good job at keeping the power curve, but I think the big thing for me for all of these promos, or nearly all of them, was there were just too many filler cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at that one, you listed off some of the players, and probably the only one out of that, well, Vinny, like you say, was just out of reach for everybody until, his red one came out. And he's still sitting at 200k. It's wild. But that's Zinchenko, who I think even at the time, Zinchenko was probably maybe maxed out about 100k. So he wasn't super expensive, but he was by far the best card to use in game that was attainable. So you're right, there's a lot of fillers. You go down, Lafont, everyone had Lafont. That Darwin Núñez was lethal for a day. You had who else we got? Alexandro was decent, but again he replaced. So a lot of these were very felt. And you're talking pages. Like the last few FIFAs, we've never had 2 pages of a promo. Like you have your team 1, team 2, sometimes team 3 and 4s, and that was a little bit overkill. I think that did kind of hamper your experience a little bit. But then on the other hand, if you're bringing out a new promo every week, people may just say that's too much as well. So you kind of have to say you're in a bit of a hard place with that as well. I'd say.
Yeah, that's the thing. The need to feed that desire from both a corporate level and a player base. The player base have been now used to weekly promo teams, so they want players, but also EA have got to keep a lid on the power curve, and also EA have got to do enough to inspire people to buy FIFA points, spend their coins, and spend their time on the game. They're a business, that is their fundamental role. So it's very tough doing that. I think the major complaint from a lot of people, I know this is very rich coming from me, and I'll brace myself for the jokes now, was the pack weight. And we especially saw, and I think Team of the Year was one of the least favoured promos this year from a lot of people because they felt the pack weight just wasn't good enough. Team of the Years were not dropping quick enough. And they also made little tweaks around the side. The upgrades, for example, didn't they? They nerfed them a bit. Instead of getting 12 cards back, you were getting 9 cards back. It just the theme throughout the year, and we talked about this a lot on the shows that me and you did, and I did with Chris and John and all the other hosts this year, was it just felt a little bit stingy throughout most of these promos, whether it was the number of good usable players or the obtainability of those players. It did feel stingy this year.
Yeah, I mean, you still even get that now in footies. I mean, I'm not as bad as I was a week or two ago, but I'm still hitting those 85 times 10s. And with the amount that I've opened, I would have expected to pull a Ronaldo, and Mbappe, a Messi, or a Neymar. And I've still not hit a big one yet. And, we laughed at in the first day or so I had that Eto. But apart from that, I've not had a game-changing pull, really. And, I mean, you opened some, I think I had about, was it nearly 200 good packs saved for Team of the Year. And you opened some of mine on stream, and I was getting like 83s in all the big packs. You're like, I mean, there's bad luck in there's that. So I mean, I to be fair, I didn't put Team of the Year as my least favorite one. I know this is probably a good way to digress onto that, Dan, because some of the players I bought and some of the players were unreal. Like the Van Dijk was he's a monster. I mean, people can still use that Van Dijk now. He's that good, and obviously you've got your Mbappes. That's just unreal and stuff. So I wouldn't say it was my least favorite. It was my least favorite pack weight, maybe, because I always expect to get a blue and never really do. But I will I've got, one to watch I rule out as a promo because it's just there and I don't even want to acknowledge it, in my honest opinion. But I have 2 I've highlighted as worst, and they're both slightly controversial, I think.
Okay.
So my first one is Level Up.
Oh,
now that's mainly to do with the price and the longevity. So, I bought a lot of these players, leveled them up and sold them. So I actually made coins on them. But when you're putting 20, 30, 40 games into these, you pretty much expect them to be end game. And you look at like the Goretzka, who's a 98 rated, or the Renato Sanchez, which was 94, and you probably could use them now. But they only lasted in my team a week, 2 weeks tops. And you think for that grind, you're like, this is shocking. But in my head, I was like, these will be better than any card coming out. And when you use them, you're like, no, these new cards are so much better. So that is one. My other one is shapeshifters because I'm not a fan of the goal. I don't, and it's weird because in my head I don't mind a left back playing right wing or something like that. I mean, it's still not my favorite thing, but having Peter Cech running through and Rabona you into the top corner, or having that Milinkovic Savic just getting on that JCB forklift truck and just driving a hole in the middle of your pitch, like no, that's a no for me. Like I can't get my head, and it might just be me, but I can't get my head around that, and I didn't really enjoy that one as much. But I mean, what do you think, Dan? What do you think of shapeshifters goalkeepers anyway? And then what's your worst promo?
No, look, for those of you who are watching this video version, you will see me pointing fingers at Nath in full agreement. I absolutely agree. And I don't think it was coincidental that my burnout came around that time that we were seeing Petr Cech rampaging around up front. And then we did get the level up, I think, just after that as well. I think one, for me, it jumped the shark a little bit for me. It pushed that suspension of disbelief a little bit too far. Just on a personal level, and then level up. It's just like, I'm not going to grind. We were post team of the season. It just wasn't going to be for me. And again, the stinginess, they took away that little bug, didn't they? That allowed people to like share. If one of you had Renato Sanchez, for example, you could join up together and play the games. You would both get the boosted version. And again, just to squash and take things like that away from the community, I just thought, I absolutely understood why. But it left a sour taste. And yeah, shapeshifters just in general. I much prefer the shapeshifters we had in FIFA 22.
It'd be interesting to see your thoughts, though, Dan, because obviously for Level Up, they kind of released the first batch and you could share it.
Yeah.
But if you couldn't share it in the first batch, would you be thinking, oh, it's not as good because we didn't have it to take away? Do you know what I mean? Or, the fact it was there and they'd nerfed it, I think is probably worse than the fact of it being there in the first place or not being there.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I thought Trophy Titans as well was a little bit underwhelming. I think, again, having those baby icons at the time that they were was just pointless. Again, who was ever going to use that 88 Owen? Again, it had a real potential, that promo. But again, maybe it was the timing of it and where it fell that I didn't really like. But I think just to go back to, and it's straying into players' territory, but I think what they did overall this year with heroes and icons was the best they've done it. And I know that's what they're going to continue to do in the AFC. But having those better boosted versions of the icons, and you touched on it with the cover stars as well, I think that was fantastic as well. But I've hated the trend of the last couple of years of this road to the knockouts nonsense. Just make road to the final from the start. It was much, much more fun and a better journey to go on than splitting them up and having these cards. Although you did used to be able to make some profit off people that didn't recognize the difference. And again, I've mentioned the rule breakers I didn't like, just sort of scrolling through some of the others. And yeah, I touched on some of the other promos that I thought they could have done a lot more with. But I think they finished on a good note with footies at least. So let's go from then promos overall into players. I sort of touched on Trophy Titans and various other icon upgrades and things like that. You get any players that really stood out for you as being super fun to use this year?
Yeah, so I've tried to stay away from the norm because people listening will be saying Mbappe, Neymar, whatever. So, and I've tried to stay away from footies because when everyone gets to 99 rated, it's kind of a bit redundant, I think. So I've listed three, and again, I will put my hands up and say I've been in a fortunate position coin-wise that I can try. Well, I've pretty much tried almost every player, but my three, team of the season, Osimhen. I think he was and he was different to any striker we've had. He was like the pace, the agility, the height. I think he was just unreal and completely undervalued. So he was one. Shapeshifters Van Dijk, especially because I've said plenty of times I like to shift formations. Van Dijk could play CDM and centre back, and he was probably one of the best in the game in both positions. So he was incredible. And I'm going to say any Captavia. I've tried lots and lots of different fullbacks, but Captavia, especially if you're keeping one on a stay back or a bounce, I think any of the Captavia cards have just been tremendous from like the time they were released. Obviously, they lasted quite a bit as well, but I think he's been probably one of the best defenders in the game.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with any of those players. I had Osimhen. I struggled to get the best out of him early on. I think it was my best pull during Team of the Season, but definitely a good player. I mean, I'll go a bit more stereotypical. I mentioned him, Renato Sanchez, ones to watch. Just a fantastic card, and clocked up the most appearances of anyone in my club. Really liked him. Team of the tournament, Harry Kane, underrated monster for me. Thought his finishing was great. I used him mostly as a midfielder in the 4-3-2-1. He was the more attacking of the three centre mids. His range of passing, his strength, and just being able to pop up in the box and score was fantastic. And on that note as well, Wayne Rooney as well, both his FUT birthday and then his footies cards. Again, just such a dynamic all-round player. Again, using him more as a midfielder. Just the amount of goals that he would pop up with and score were, just a joy to behold. So yeah, those would be my sort of top three. Any on the other scale that disappointed you, Nath?
Yes. Check. Milinkovic, Savic, Ochoa. No, I mean, I won't go back to the favourite ones. I'm going to put a special shout out to the team of the year, David Beckham, because not for how he played, but he made an absolute bucket load of coins for me, because he would always drop, 500-600k and then rise again the next day. So until I told Shaq to get in on that, and then I think Shaq lost about a mil. So sorry, pal, but. He's the reason I've ended up with so many coins. I mean, I'm trying to open every pack that I can now, so I think I've still got about 5 mil left. I'm like, wow. But Beckham was phenomenal. Least favourites, some of the goalkeepers, there's too many of them to go, but not just the goalkeepers that changed outfielders, but goalkeepers just annoy me. I mean, I was lucky that I got Van der Sar, and I just stuck with him, because before that, I went from sort of chocolate finger biscuits where they would just snap to pop it on my hands where they would crumble, so the holy goalie where they just wouldn't even put the hands together. So goalkeepers annoy me. We did, I think you were with me, I did both the Zidanes, and they were good for a day, and then I'm like, they're actually like massively overpriced. Cruyff was good, but again, he didn't really have the longevity. But I'm talking sort of top end players, but I think it might be more to do with like when they were released, rather than how good they are as well. Because I think at the times, like Cruyff was the 91. I think he was probably the version below what you'd expect to have had released, and that Zidane was the one with the medium work rates. And I think it's more personally I get on with one of them being a bit higher. So yeah, I can't really say, because I've been in a good position. I've used lots of good players and I've been able to buy players, so it's been a little bit different for me. But I think probably either the goalkeepers that are outfielders or Zidane. I'd say was it the Prime Zidane that was released SBC?
Was it the mid? I can't remember. Whichever one it was on my list as well, because I used him for quite a while. And when I was playing him in a cam position, he was good, but trying to play him, and he was kind of a CM. He just wasn't doing the business. But he did produce some really magic moments where I thought, wow, that's Zidane. But yeah, overall for the price and the investment, and Cruyff was the same again. I think it was just more the time he was released, and you just hoping for really big things that it's Cruyff, but it doesn't come out for you. I think a player I wanted to mention, again, you talked about the frustrations of facing those goalkeepers. Can I mention lengthy Erling Haaland from September and October for the amount of times he would treat my defenders with such disdain and just storm through as somebody launches a long through ball. So yeah, he very much will go on my please leave me alone list. I think Ronaldo was the same as well. He's CR7 Ronaldo. Also, the few times I had the misfortune to run into Trophy Titans R9, after he was released, for just absolutely destroying my poor defence. There you go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, fine. I will give a very negative thumbs down to you. But otherwise, I can't really think of players that I've picked up that I didn't use. Again, I think the disappointing once again came to the fact that I've praised EA for how they did make more icons more relevant, but there were still too many heroes and icon versions. Like I touched on the baby Trophy Titans. You were just sat there, well, that's pointless. And they're still not good. Like they released these beefed up versions of like Gerrard and Lampard, and they still weren't good. Like, they only kind of really got it right at the very end of the game. But even then, you had people like Scholes that just didn't quite translate the magic. But whether that's a body type thing, I'm not sure.
He's medium as well. I actually think Scholes was fantastic. He's good fun to use. The 5-star is different. But you're right, they do slightly miss the mark. But again, in an ideal world, the Beckham and Lampard that they released, if they released that 3 weeks earlier, people would be saying, well, that card's incredible. So it might just be a timing and a scheduling issue compared to anything else. But the other one, Al O'Riordan, once people clocked on to him.
Yes.
The fact that you would play him and Mbappe on either wing, and you're just sort of like basically just done. You could just give up straight away. So
yeah, the pace and the through ball meta was still there. And let's talk about gameplay now. I'm going to say overall, I thought the gameplay was much more fair. Yes, there were glitches, things like kickoff glitches, step over boost, and things like that annoy everybody every year. Where there were too many cutback goals, and was the intelligence of the goalkeepers and central defenders good enough? Probably not. But overall, Nath, I did think there were different Travellas that had that glitch in the early game as well, that were flying in left, right, and centre. From like ridiculous players as well that had like 60 shooting. I remember conceding because of that and just wanting to hurl my controller away. But overall, just on the gameplay and the style, what were your feelings? Good, better than other versions?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually gone better. I've said it excellent on the whole. I think gameplay's been very varied and fluid. So you do have, we always laugh about kickoff glitch, but I'm not a fan of that, even though I have maybe partaken in it a couple of times. I usually partake in it once somebody's done it to me, and if they score, I'll try it back to them. That's my usual go-to. But I think the gameplay's been brilliant. I like the fact that, a lot of people tried the 4-3-2-1, but you couldn't say that was the be-all meta. It's quite an attacking meta, but there's always been a formation that we found that's either countered it or, taking it straight to them. So I think formation-wise, it's been good. I think until recently, there has been quite a variation of the players that have been used as well. You very rarely see the exact same team until footies where everyone, you can grind away and just get any player that you want. So, you've got to take that with a pinch of salt. But I think it has been quite varied as well. Gameplay-wise, I think the passing's been pretty good. Through balls have been slightly overpowered and the cutbacks have been probably a bit OP as well. But you got to counter that by thinking it's a video game. They have to write these sort of things, and well, they don't have to write it, but if it wasn't a through ball meta, it would be a long throw meta, or do you know what I mean, like a fast break meta. There's always going to be something in there because it's a video game, and I don't think you'll ever have a video game that there's not a meta to exploit. So I think it's been a cracking gameplay. But what do you think, Dan? Apart from sort of the glitches aside, then.
Yeah, no, I agree. And as I said, I think there were varied ways to score. Again, do I wish things like crosses were a bit better? Of course. Do I wish certain other things, like I mentioned, the cutbacks were less OP? Obviously, but it wasn't the FIFA 20 of constant dragbacks in and around the box. It wasn't FIFA 21's, was it FIFA 21, directional nutmegs everywhere. Mm-hmm. There were very few things where I thought, I have to learn this one particular meta or I'm not going to be able to do it. I played the same kind of way I played all year without having to learn exploits or a particular OP move. Now, there was it's with any game, there are better skill moves and things like that helped me, but it wasn't, I think it was in FIFA 22 with shot cancels everywhere. You were shot cancelling everywhere in the box to open up space. There was enough space. There was enough scope to play your way. Certain ways better than others, but I was on the fringes or in elite most seasons. I was 11 to 14 wins regularly without feeling like I had to go away back to the training pitch and learn the same things. It was improving those core mechanics, which again, if you head over to footcoaching.com, that is the kind of things that they teach you, those core mechanics, and pointing out the obvious, very simple things you can do. Don't think of foot coaching and coaching as just, we're going to sit there and teach you how to do an elastico over and over again. It's not. They go away, they analyze your game, they look at it and say, look, as with my personal example, John noticed, and anyone who watches my streams would have noticed, I rampage up with my fullbacks. I'm so keen to get the ball back that I pull them out of position, and the amount of times I was then getting other players were getting dragged out of position to cover them, it was costing me goals. That's the kind of things they do. So footcoaching.com for all the information on that. But no, overall gameplay-wise, very happy. I just want to touch on before we go as well, because we're rapidly running out of time and I have to go and pick my daughter up from nursery. She doesn't understand the demands of podcasting these days, Nath. Let's talk about menus and some of the other changes. One of the big things we saw for this year, of course, all the way back now, that we've forgotten about, chemistry system changed massively. There was a lot of grumbling at the start that it wasn't quite as good. Now that we've had it for a year, happy with this chem system?
Yes and no. It's different. It takes a while to get used to. I like the fact it doesn't have negative impact on your players, which is good. I like the fact that the longer the game's gone on, they've brought out the... forgive me, I can't remember the actual name, but like the full chem ones, like the hero type chemistry.
Premium versions.
Premium, that's on Premium Link. So I like that because I think that allows you to put more players into the team that you want. So I'm not decided whether it's a good or bad thing that you need to have X amount for the same nation or X amount for the same league, because it still does kind of hamper it being an ultimate team. But at the same time, it does give you that variation of teams, that you want, because you don't want to be playing the same players all the time. So jury's still out for me. I think there's good and bad parts to it. But Dan, what do you think to that? Are you kind of any more taken by it?
I've kind of got used to it now. I appreciate that as they intended, it's allowed you to, not be a slave to having players right next to each other in the right positions. But yeah, I think I've got used to it. I think that the tweaks that they're doing with icons for EAFC will make a big difference in the fact that they will now give a boost to leagues. I think that was the one negative this year. Icons just didn't seem very useful in squad building. So it's good that they've addressed that and they've recognised it. And the premium editions as well did help later on in the game. So overall, that was fine. Other menu stuff, I think it was disappointing. They abandoned things like the events tab, just completely ignored it, just kind of sat there for a while. Swaps, again, they've transitioned swaps away from go and get this token to just boost yourself to up towards in the season rewards. And again, if those of you who've just listened to our FC24 pitch notes deep dive, will kind of have our feelings on that. So we won't go back into them again. But anything else sort of around off the pitch from FIFA 23 that you wanted to highlight, good or bad?
There's a couple. I think it's been disappointing, some of the rewards they've given you from League SBCs, we say it. Even some of the other sort of grinding SBCs and objectives. I think it's a bit rubbish that they're putting them either like the packs aren't as good or they're making everything untradeable. There's like little value to that. I think that it's a bit disappointing. The companion app's been terrible. Again, it's very glitchy.
So bad.
It's very buggy. You don't get certain players, don't show up. You have to refresh it every time because if you use them into an SBC, it won't send them to club. So I think the app's been pretty poor. And I don't want to be negative towards the end of our last 23 pod, but you have to say some of the mistakes that EA have made in terms of the menus. The packs the hero pack was good for some people, but it crashed the market. There's just been so many mistakes, and we've touched on it all the way through. That has to be highlighted as a menu issue, because I think they've been very like, whether it's they forgot certain, there's been times where they actually seem to have forgotten to put content out, and it comes out, it doesn't even like it comes out 7:00, it just comes out at a random time as well. So I think that's been disappointing. I think that's something that EA, in my opinion, must learn from. Not saying that they will, but and like you said, it kind of drove you away a little bit with some of the mistakes, and you do sometimes feel like it's more like, let's get a rush to get it out for 6:00, whether it's right or wrong, and then get the coins in. So I think that's been one of my biggest takeaways from this.
Yeah, quality control was abysmal. From the glitches, you had early things where you couldn't even play with certain players in your squads; it would crash the game.
Joe Cole.
Joe Cole. We had that hero pack that was released, and if you were lucky enough to get on in that half an hour, you benefited. I was one of the lucky ones, so I only got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But and then the mysterious way players disappeared off the market and things like that. The
icon as well. Was it not Pele that if you did one of the packs and you got a tradable version back? You're like
compensation exploitation, I think, and just with all the language packs we had around Team of the Season, it's just distorting and allowing people to benefit from their own stupid mistakes, allowing exploits to be used, but it being over a barrel in that it wasn't such an exploit like we just saw with this free player glitch we had in the last week that's got a few people banned because it was the EA's mistake, and it wasn't technically, nobody was, you can't literally point a finger and say to someone, how dare you change the language, because you'd open yourself up to all kinds of lawsuits if you did that. You kind of have to, through gritted teeth, give them their compensation. But allowing that door to be open was bad enough. So didn't like that. And again, I think just as you talked about untradeable rewards, the big jumbo massive packs started to leave a bit of a sour taste. The 500k pack and all of these gigantic jumbo packs that were appearing in the store. It started as a novelty with the Centurions pack, and then it became just a routine. I didn't like that. I don't like the increased emphasis on spending EA points. But again, as I said all year, it's a business, and we have to accept that until there is no competition. Until there is more competition. But let's finish up there, Nath. Let's give our scores on the doors. If you had to give FIFA 23 a rank out of 10, what would you be giving it?
I think I would give it a solid 8. I think the EA mistakes, in terms of the menu mistakes, have kind of brought it down a little bit. But gameplay-wise, has been tremendous. There's things that we could sit here till tomorrow and say, I'd like them to use better variety of players in the promos, because we listed the same players in like 3 different promos then. So I'd like that. I'd like them to cut out the mistakes with the quality control and stuff. So, that brings it down. However, I think the gameplay's been exceptional. I think the variation's been brilliant. So yeah, I think I'd say an 8 out of 10 would be quite justified.
Yeah, and that is the exact same rating that I would go for as well. Again, I think that the lows were very disappointing. And again, there were just very basic stuff that they could get right. But overall, I had fun. And I said the amount of time I invested into the game, the variety of players that I used was just really good. And I had a lot of fun with it. I can, like you said, we could list off 100 things that we don't like about the game, but it's often those are the things that come to your fore because so much else is good. It was so, it's often so close to being great, and then just little things take away from it. So hopefully they'll tighten up. As I said, I don't think we're going to see EA put out a 10 out of 10 game until they have to, until they are really pushed hard by another product like they were with PES back in the day, and they have to fight for every sale and every interaction. I think at the moment, if you want to play a football game, it's EAFC, it's FIFA. That is pretty much your choice. Yes, there's eFootball, but it's still not there as a serious competitor. And whether something like Goals or UFL or whatever the myriad of other products are out there, Mario Soccer, closes the gap, we will see. But anything else to add on FIFA 23 and the FIFA franchise in general as we say goodbye?
No, I mean, it's been, I think my first one was 98 Road to the World Cup. So I've loved FIFA. I've had gripes with FIFA as well. Just on a personal note, though, like, the podcast has been brilliant fun. Dan, your streaming, I've really enjoyed your streaming that we can sit and talk nonsense as you're playing, and I can abuse you as you're playing. And, the peer pressure that you succumb to with the icon packs and stuff's been brilliant. But it's been a pleasure and a privilege being part of, Foot Coaching, Foot and Review. The feedback we've been getting is brilliant. I mean, John's talked about, and you've talked about that, we've got big changes coming as well. Not just with it being AFC, but in terms of our Discord and how we're operating, even Foot Coaching as well. So keep an eye out for that. But I just think it's really exciting. It's been an amazing journey so far. I'm really excited for Friday and onwards, and hopefully we'll just keep growing in terms of as a team, and the game will get better. We'll have less things to complain about, but obviously we want something to complain about, because otherwise, what would we make a podcast about?
Indeed. Look, thanks for the memories, guys, from the original FIFA International Soccer, which I was playing on my Mega Drive as a 8-year-old, through to FIFA 99 on my N64, playing FIFA 97 with the indoor mode on my PS1, and then coming back in the pandemic and through a tough time in all of our lives, finding this community, Foot and Review. So my hat has to be tipped to EA. The amount of aggro, probably I could do without, my blood pressure. But other than that, it's all been good. Lots to look forward to, as Nath mentioned, patreon.com/Foot in Review. Loads of fantastic things, from exclusive trading shows, tips, advice. And the good news is right now, everybody, you can sign up for a free 7-day trial to any of our tiers other than Skybox Holder. So if you're interested, if you always thought, they talk a good game, but what does it look like? What does the Discord look like? Now you can find out. Go and take up that trial. And of course, footcoaching.com if you want to sign up and really sharpen up your skills ahead of this new game with fantastic coaches such as Nathan. Nathan, where can people find you online?
I'm NG Downs on both our wonderful Discord and Twitter X, whatever we're calling it these days.
Yeah, indeed. I am Wimby86 for all things FIFA on X, and also at Wimby as well if you want to hear me moaning about Reading. Twitch.tv/Wimby86. And of course, all of the Foot Coaching socials at Foot Coaching. Of course, we're doing TikToks, Instagrams, X's, everything now. Really ramping it up out of this new year. Thank you for all of your support, whether you support us on Patreon or just, leave us a 5-star review or retweet one of our socials or follow us. It is all very much appreciated. One thing left for us, well, I should actually say, just a scheduling announcement. We'll have a show. Of course, the AFC is coming out on Friday. We'll have a show up on Saturday for everybody around that. And I will be doing a Patreon exclusive trading show on Tuesday. And of course, myself and Nath have also done that pitch notes deep dive as well for you to listen to. But now we can say that one final thing.
Drop it.
We're going to drop it.
Drop it.
F-U.
T.
F-U.
T.
F-F-F-U.
T.
F-U. T.
T.
T. In review. F-U.
T.